Thank you, Margaret. Good afternoon, everybody. Hi. Last session on the last day. Okay, we're going to power through. I'm excited to speak with everybody here today. I'm very curious, first of all, to know a little bit more about you all. So, how many of you here are educators or teachers? Raise your hands higher. Okay. Do we have any students here today? A few. Okay. Team student, doing quite well. How about any folks from the government? Anybody? A few. Okay. Great. And I see some members of the press there as well. Well, today I wanted to talk about this, an education for the 21st century. And I wanted to share with you an idea. It's actually much more than an idea now. It's a model for what higher education, particularly US-style higher education, can look like going forward. You may ask why. I don't know if you'd still ask why after these several days here, but here are some reasons why. Here are some numbers that describe why. Just because students nowadays, or young people nowadays, are dealing with a world that changes so quickly, such that by the time that students that are now maybe in high school or even younger, these people will enter into jobs, they will enter into companies, industries. In fact, they will found a lot of these jobs and companies and industries, right, that don't even exist yet, that didn't even exist when they were in grade school, and just by the time they leave university. So the question is, how do we help people prepare for this type of a situation, for this type of a world, for this type of a future? Another interesting number to think about is this, right? And I think certainly all the adults in the room, and that's most of us, this shouldn't come as any surprise, that when companies from around the world, whenever they're asked what capacities or skills, abilities they most want the people they hire to have, they most wish particularly fresh university graduates have, they invariably, almost all of them say, they're looking for people with the ability to solve complex problems, with the ability to critically analyze and critically reason, and then with the ability to communicate and interact with others very effectively. So imagine for a minute a top-tier, very rigorous university experience that is designed to do just this, which is designed to teach students the skills and abilities they need for success in an uncertain future, right? Not just teaching them content matter, but again, the skills and abilities necessary for an uncertain future. What would this institution look like? If you were going to build it yourselves, right? Just think you have unlimited resources, whatever you want, what would it look like? What would you create? Right? And I want to share with you one particular model, what we call Minerva, right? Put together by some quite prominent folks in US higher education, including some people that used to be deans and presidents at some of our traditional top universities in the United States, including Stanford, Wharton, Harvard. People that really understand US higher education. They know what's good about it, they know what's not so good about it, right? And they've come together to, in effect, create something better. What would this institution look like? First and foremost, it would have much more reimagined and innovative academics, both curriculum and pedagogy. And I'll talk a little bit about each of these in turn in a minute. We believe it should be much more global, right? And offer its students global immersion at a level that really I have not seen before. Maybe you haven't either. It would be much more accessible. Imagine a great US institution, or even a great Korean institution or a German institution that wasn't just for students of that particular country, that was for the top minds from around the world, and had a selection process that actually very much spoke to that and was true to that. And think about the type of international community and diversity that this would actually drive. Right? So, academics, curriculum, pedagogy. Right? What, in effect, is Minerva at least trying to do? I want to talk about our goals for our graduates. I want to talk about some of the capacities that they learn to achieve those goals. And then I want to talk a little bit about really what those capacities are comprised of. Simply, what are our goals for our graduates? We want our graduates to understand leadership and innovation. That's not to say we want them to be leaders right away, right out of the moment that they graduate. It might be a little bit unrealistic to consider that a 22-year-old college graduate should be leading something, or at least leading something large right away, but we want them to understand what leadership is about, right? Certainly the cognitive processes and abilities and experience that go into that. Same thing with innovation, right? We want them to be broad thinkers, not just experts in a certain area. Domain expertise is very, very important, I agree, but we want them to be able to be broad, right? And we want them to be global citizens and understand what that means to be a global citizen. So to do so, right, we believe there has to be a focus on the learning, the teaching as well, but more importantly, the learning of certain core competencies or core skills, right? The first area of these are comprised of things you do by yourself, personal skills, and let's call them critical thinking, which includes things like weighing claims, evaluating decisions, and creative thinking, right, in the broadest sense of the word, solving problems and developing different ideas, things you do on your own. And then interpersonal skills, things that you do with others, things like effective communication, reading, writing, presenting like I'm doing now, and effective interaction, which includes working on teams, working with each other, debating, negotiating, things like this. But as many of you, particularly the educators in this room, know, something like critical thinking, we hear that a lot, right? It's not a heterogeneous, it's not a homogeneous thing. It's a heterogeneous idea or thing or concept. It's comprised of many, many different things. And therefore, in essence, we don't directly teach, or we don't directly learn critical thinking. I'm going to teach you critical thinking today. It's not exactly how it works. However, there are many, many building blocks which these things are actually comprised of, right? And Minerva, this is one of the most interesting things about this, our particular model, we believe, is that Minerva, unlike anything else that I've actually seen, has broken those capacities and those competencies down, right, into what we use 115 different habits of mind and foundational concepts, right, that underline and help students actually learn these core capacities, right? The first of which, let's comprise about 1/2 of those 115 that I mentioned, call them habits of mind. And by habit of mind, we mean a cognitive skill that would become deliberate with automatic practice, right? And some examples could be using plausibility checks for claims. Someone claims something, you want to actually check if this is plausible or not, right? The second area we call are foundational concepts. And a foundational concept is a little bit different. It's not as automatic, maybe as a habit of mind, but we consider this fundamental or basic knowledge that promotes broad adaptive behavior. What does that mean? Some examples, like running a cost-benefit analysis, right? It's something that you don't, you know that you have to do it, but you have to go through the process every time. Using BATNAs, best alternatives to negotiated agreements in negotiations and things like this. Again, cognitive and sometimes non-cognitive processes that build up into these core capacities, right? And in fact, the 4 cornerstone courses that comprise the first-year curriculum at this institution, at Minerva, have a very, very strong focus, right? And in effect, their main purpose is to have students learn these habits of mind and foundational concepts. There are certain areas of focus. You look at the, let's see here, the one up here, you've got formal analysis with a focus on critical thinking, right? Advanced logic, rational thought, statistics, using subject matter, right? But the end goal is the learning, right? And the ability to apply all those habits of mind and foundational concepts that I mentioned, right? In a much, much, much more systematic and purposeful way than anything at least I've ever seen before, right? Now, of course, as I said before, content matter is also important, or domain expertise is also important. So what do we believe a university like this would actually have? We also believe it would deal in content. There would be teaching and learning of content, except that if you were going to, again, devise a course catalog nowadays based on the types of subject matter, the combination of subject matter, right, that students would need for our current world nowadays, right, and going forward a bit for the future, it probably would look very, very different than the course catalogs of any other university. And therefore, and this is a portion of Minerva's, it does look very, very different from the course catalogs of any other traditional university, at least in the United States, right? That is to say, you don't necessarily have a biology department and a biology major just because everybody else has a biology department and a biology major and it's been around for, I don't know, 80 years or 100 years, right? If anything, if a system or a model has been around for 80, 100 years, we probably should stop and think, does it maybe need a refresh, or does it maybe need to change? And that also means that this group of concentrations, majors, areas of study, in 20 or 30 years will not be the same. Because the key to developing a model, right, built for the 21st century means it has to involve fluidity. It has to be flexible, right? And that means these things will actually change over time, right? So, I said that much, and I just said a little bit about curriculum, so let me quicken the pace a little bit. Let's talk about pedagogy, right? So what if you could do this? What if you could take all of the tools that exist in the science of learning toolkit, right? What if you could take all of the tools that pedagogical science has proven over the years? We didn't invent this stuff or prove it, but other people have shown over the years that work in the classroom to create a better classroom, right? Sometimes it's as simple as no lectures, right? Flipping the classroom, right? Using active learning as much as possible to engage 100% of the students as much of the time as possible, right? How about classes where students are only 15 or 18 students in a class, right? Why? Because the data shows us that there's a sweet spot, an ideal class size, and we all know, either as students or as educators or whatever, that it's not 100 people. That's not an ideal class size. We all know that, right? But a lot of science has shown that it's, well, some people say it's 15 to 19 students, some people say it's 21 to 25 students. Regardless, it's certainly a relatively small number, right? And then, in addition to all these pedagogical tools that have been around for a long, long time, what if we could say this? What if we could use the best of modern technology to create a much more and build a much more intimate and intense classroom experience and pull all these tools together? Let me show you what the Minerva classroom actually looks like.
The Active Learning Forum is the unexpected learning forum, the place where you're constantly engaging with what you're learning.
As a Minerva student, I get to take classes from anywhere in the city.
All of Minerva's classes are taught in the seminar format with a maximum of 18 students.
Everyone agrees that higher education could be much better than it is today. Minerva's acting on that by putting together state-of-the-art technology and superb pedagogy. We have at our fingertips tools that are designed to engage the students 100% of the time.
When you characterize a problem, it's important that it helps guide you to the solution.
Perfect, that's excellent.
In a normal classroom, there's people behind you, there's people to the side of you, but it's nice to be able to see everybody and their reactions to what's being talked about in class.
I feel like I'm in a room with all of my students. I simply forget I'm on the computer. You will be going into breakout groups.
It's the kind of learning where we're an active participant instead of a passive recipient, and it's so much more fun than a traditional class.
We are the only school in the world that uses the science of learning to design not just what we teach, but how we teach it.
Minerva students live and study together. Having that human interaction really strengthens the online class experience.
We can do things with education that has simply never been possible before, and that's what we're trying to do at Minerva.
I like that quote. So we can do things with education that have never been possible before. We've had a lot of pedagogical tools for a while. Now we have pedagogical tools coupled with technology, albeit technology that we had to build because it didn't actually exist before, but one that is designed to create a much more intimate, much more intense, and improved classroom to better optimize individual student learning outcomes. So, talked a bit about curriculum, I talked a bit about pedagogy. Let me just say a little bit about about global immersion here, right? So, Minerva, remember, wants to educate global citizens, people that understand the world. And we believe to understand the world, you actually have to experience it. You have to actually live in it. And that's why at Minerva, our students live in 7 different cities and countries around the world. San Francisco, Berlin, Buenos Aires, Seoul. Seoul, that's right, I said Seoul. Bangalore, Istanbul, and London. It is our plan to come to Seoul in the next couple of years. Right? And in doing so, it's not about building a traditional campus. Right? Not only is Minerva reimagining what a great curriculum and pedagogy should look like, but also rethinking what a campus should be. How do you define a campus, right? And when you have these amazing global cities, like this one around the world, and you probably have 40 or 50 cities that we're thinking of that have a critical mass of size and resources, right, that we could use, we use cities as our campus, right? Instead of just building something and trying to replicate resources that already exist in abundance in certain places, right? A much more effective and efficient use of resources, right? Finally, let's talk about accessibility and the very diverse community that this actually drives, right? So Minerva, interestingly, is at the same time the most selective US university now and maybe ever, certainly now, but at the same time, it's one that selects students from around the world based on merit alone. And again, for those of you who think that some of our other great institutions of higher learning in the US, the traditional ones, do that, you're mistaken, right? And you can probably ask some other folks as well around here because they know too, right? So Minerva is just looking at academic excellence, exceptional achievement, and the characteristics that drive that. And has a very, very, again, reimagined, rethought out assessment process, selection process, right? Much, much more, I have to say, fair and equitable, right? But again, even though, that's the case, Minerva still is very, very selective. But again, just along those academic merit-based lines. You can see we have 2 classes of students now. We only have 2 years of students, right? Only our second year. We've been planning this for years. 2 years ago, we opened this up and said, okay, let's see how many students who are operating at the very, very high level that we're looking for at Minerva are interested in coming. There were more than we thought the first year. The second year, there were many, many more than we thought, in that we had well over 11,000 applications from Minerva. But again, very selective along academic merit-based lines. But there were several hundred students that actually did meet our bar, our academic bar. And anyone who does meet our bar, we admit them all, right? We don't care if you're from Korea, if you're from Zimbabwe, if you're from Germany, right? US students don't get any special consideration, right? They don't get any worse consideration at Minerva, but they don't have any special consideration, right? And as a result, you have a very, very international and diverse student body, right? The one other way I'll mention that you increase accessibility for the world's brightest students is you do something about how should I say this? The absolutely crazy cost of US higher education nowadays, right? I use that word. I mean, a lot of people in the United States, both in education and maybe just parents and students, are a bit up in arms about this, right? How much is tuition nowadays at our traditional top-tier, private institutions in the US, even at some of our public institutions? $40,000 US a year just for tuition? 45, 50? Some, I guess, are top 50, right now. So Minerva said, listen, not only do we have to build a better model, we have to make it more affordable. And you can probably guess in some of the ways that I just mentioned right now. We can talk more about this later if you're interested. In the model as we built it, it does allow for us to do much, much more with much, much less. And that means Minerva's tuition is only $10,000 US a year. And we do a very, very generous need-based and international need-blind financial aid, right? If someone is operating at a level where they can actually get into this university, we're going to make sure that they can actually afford to be there for 4 years, right? So again, this is a particular model. Started out with a vision and now it's already a model for what great higher education can and maybe even perhaps should be. This is our idea. Hopefully you've been thinking as I've been talking about what you might want to do if you actually would create the next greatest university, either here in Korea or elsewhere. But hopefully at least this is giving you a little bit to think about in terms of how far higher education can go. Thank you very much.
Hi everyone. Okay, today I would like to share our experiences on transforming the teaching and learning at KAIST. Okay. So the question is, do we really need lecturing? Okay. So lecturing, it has a lot of limitations. One-way information transport. It is well designed to be very efficient for some information transport for many students. And it has a limited interaction, and the students are very passive, and many problems. Okay. So there are many claims and debates on the effectiveness of the lecturing. Okay, the McKinsey report, and also kind of an internet debate, and also the famous conferences on our new directions on education, and also some debates in the SNS. Okay, so all these have some common message. Okay, the lecturing is the worst. Okay, it's not so effective for our real learning. Okay, so we had some survey made by our freshman students. Okay, by themselves. So we asked which one was the most effective for your learning in the first semester. The first one was just solving exercise, okay? The KAIST is kind of engineering and science school, okay? And what is the second? Just studying the textbook by themselves. What about third? Just discussing with friends, okay? Just Q&A and so on. Then where is the professor's lecturing? Okay, the fourth. It accounts for only 10%, okay? So then all the top three are just for learning, okay? Learning by themselves, or learning together with their friends or the colleagues. Then do we have any solutions, okay, for this kind of problem or limitations of the lecturing? Okay, yes, there are many, okay? We already know what to do and how to do, okay? There are many good ways of teaching and learning, okay? As Ken suggested, some active learning, problem-based learning, or some collaborative or the peer-based tutoring or learning, okay? Many good ideas we already know. However, they have some common things, okay? They all emphasize, or they try to maximize the interactions between students and professors, and student participation. So we know the interactions and participations can improve the learning and can improve some new talents. Creativity and critical thinking, problem solving, communication, teamwork, and leadership. All these are required by our new industry and society. Okay, how do we teach them? We cannot make any courses, specific courses for them, okay? There are also some evidences. These kind of interactions and participation can improve our real learning, concentration, long-term memory, and structuring the knowledge, what we learned, okay? And even we can change the students' characters. So, however, they were not so successful yet, okay? Why? Why not so successful? I think the personal reason is we professors are spending our precious class hours just for lecturing, okay? We have no other times for discussions or interactions. Usually professors respond, we have too much things to teach, okay? And second one is the lecturing is most convenient for our professors. okay? And the last one is the PowerPoint is responsible, I think, okay? Bill Gates should pay. And then the answer is very simple, okay? We need very simple and very effective strategy of implementing the good ideas, okay? By eliminating the lecturing from the classroom, okay, then we can make enough class hours. Then we can make use of the times or hours, class hours, to maximize the interactions and participation in classrooms. Okay. Then we can implement many well-known good ideas and pedagogies, okay, in class. Okay. Then where is the lecturing? Okay, I really believe that we don't need the lecturing at all, okay? But for the time being, we can send the lecturing to internet, okay? The e-learning technology has been matured very well, okay? We can make use of them, okay? So, very interactive classes and also e-learning. By combining them, we called it Education 3.0 class, okay? I don't know whether it is a good name or a bad name, okay? So, however, it happened to be very close to so-called flipped learning nowadays, okay? However, we try to emphasize more on the interactions and participations and some teamwork and so on, okay? So in classroom, okay, we usually have team-based learning, team assignment, team-based problem solving, and even peer tutoring, some labs and cases and so on. Of course, we can do some Q&A and tests, okay? So we reduced the class hours into a half, because we should reduce the workload of students, okay? And we also try to make some teams, 3 persons or 6 persons. And we assigned more TAs, okay, in classroom, okay? Now the TAs are working in classroom, not in his office, okay? So we developed kind of the e-learning content and the lecture videos and the review questions and so on to make the students prepare some basic knowledge before coming to the classroom, okay? And we try to maximize and try to make the real deep learning at classroom, okay? The classroom is the place where the students make learning, okay? Just not for listening. So many good tips, ideas, okay? So we have some examples here, some calculus, kind of mathematics for freshmen, okay? In this classroom, only problem solving together with their team members. TAs and professors can help, advise, and guide. No lecturing at all, okay? Then we compared some part of the midterm exam, okay? The average was 10 points higher than the other classes, okay? Another one, programming courses, okay? So in the classroom, only programming assignment, okay? Students develop his own programming code together with their friends, okay? And eventually the final score, exam score was top or the third among the 12 parallel classes. Actually, I think our classroom transformation, class transformation is not intended to improve the exam scores, okay? But many persons asked, exam scores, doesn't matter, okay? Even better. English and scientific writings, okay? Only practice in classroom, okay? There is no reason for lecturing, okay? There are a lot of lecturing videos and content in internet, okay? We can make use of them, okay? My courses, even very large classes, okay, almost 90s. Teamwork assignments, I'm using 48s, okay? So it's my classroom, kind of layout and discussion and teamwork. Students are working together. And we can do this kind of teaching even at conventional large lecture hall, okay? 3 persons together, they collaborate. And then also they can talk with the others. So we have some feedback. From the 2012, okay, we had 3 pilot classes at that time and increased the numbers, okay? Professors applied for this kind of new teaching. Then we support them and we give a small incentive and so on. But from the last years, we now have more than 100 classes, but still it's not enough. It's only 4%, okay? In the long run, we try to increase the numbers, 800 each year, 30%. Then we can make a real impact, I believe. So, student feedback, okay? Overall satisfaction on the average was 3.9, and class evaluation, okay? 4.2 is higher than the university, the average. And also the preferences to, as compared to lecturing was 64%, but the remaining 25% were neutral, okay? Retention ratio, we'll do this kind of teaching again, okay? 67%, and so on. We compared, okay, the performance of top 3% of the high interaction classes, okay, with the other classes, okay. Then very highly interactive classes, they performed very well, okay, very high satisfaction and class evaluation. It means our teaching method is very effective, okay. Professors' feedback, okay. Most of them responded, better understanding by students, okay. Deeper questions. And most of them wished to repeat this kind of teaching again. Okay, we have some lessons, okay. It's very sustainable, okay. At the beginning, we were very skeptical, okay? Even professors and even students, very skeptical, okay? Because we have a very fixed mind on traditional teaching, okay? Second, it was even better, okay? Even in exam scores, okay? But we are now just beginning, okay? It means there are a lot of room to be improved, okay? So we have another lesson, okay? Usually students had very high expectations on lecture videos and e-learning content and even learning management systems, okay? So they don't want just lecturing, okay? Even in their e-learning systems, okay? They need more interactive learning content and materials, even in internet. And also, I think that we need a new mindset and attitude. Professors and students, okay? We should change the mind. We should explain why we are doing this, okay? students should understand. Otherwise, they may make some complaints because they have been well adjusted to traditional teaching, very clear problem, clear answers. But in these classes, we usually have very many open questions and discussions. So we should share the philosophy and the vision. Our story was reported in the Nature, okay, the top journal, but it also reports some the articles, news, and also in Forbes. Okay. Forbes reported our approach and message as a kind of a disruptive innovation in education. Okay. Many news media reported. And I also personally made almost 60 invited talks in our country and outside. Okay. My point is, our approach, okay, just eliminating the lecturing from classroom, it makes sense, okay? It works. So there are also many other evidences, okay? In science journal by the Nobel Prize winners, okay? He reported his just 1 week experiences. Amazing improvement. Okay. Another one, Harvard University, okay, Professor Majul, okay. He's teaching his physics classes, okay, for more than 4 years, more than 10 years, okay, without any lecturing, okay, kind of peer instruction, or another method, very similar to our the flipped learning, okay. So without lecturing, we can do better, okay? There are also the other cases, 100% flipped university in Turkey, a new university. Even a high school, completely flipped high school. The school reported very improved flunk ratio, okay? Mine르바. I like him because we share the same idea. So then, where are we going? What is the next? Okay. You know, nowadays, music and movies are almost digitalized, okay? Then what about our education, educational content? How much percent, do you know? I'm not sure, but almost 4%. It was claimed by the founder of the Coursera, okay? She claimed. But in the future, the level of digitalization will increase very fast. Digitalization has a special meaning, okay? It changes the rule of game, and it changes the whole the value chain and business ecosystems, okay? Then in the future, our universities and professors may have a kind of risks, okay? They may not need me, okay? Many persons have some very strong concerns, okay? Coursera, massive open online courses, okay? We call it MOOC. There are Coursera, edX, okay? They are evolving very fast, okay? More and more universities are participating, and more courses, okay? We also participated in the Coursera 2 years ago. Now we are providing some courses, okay? Very good responses. Many students from all around the world, okay? For example, even our KAIST is not so famous in the world, okay? Nonetheless, okay, more than 10,000 or 2,000 students for each class at the end, okay, not the beginning, okay? At the end of classes, we had 10,000 or 2,000 students, okay? very massive, okay? Our government, okay, also launched a Korean MOOC, okay? Now, not so many universities, okay? Not so many courses. It launched in the last October, okay? But in the future, I hope it will invite more universities and more courses, okay? I think in the future, MOOC will accelerate digitalization of our lecturing and the education, okay? So I think MOOC and flipped learning has some synergy, okay? They are complementary to each other. So then what about the future of the lecturing, okay? Professors may disappear, okay? If he insists just the lecturing, okay, I think, okay? In the future, I think the lecturing will be a part of digitalized learning content. What is your learning content now? Just a textbook, okay? It will be a kind of a textbook, okay? Today, many global publishers are moving toward these directions. They are trying to provide more e-learning content, okay? More than the textbook, okay? So in the future, we are changing, okay, from teaching, efficient teaching, especially efficient lecturing, to effective learning, okay? Effective learning by students, okay? Okay, what will be the professor's role in the future? Professors will produce the lot of learning content, e-learning content, even content in offline classroom, okay? And then he will be a user of content, and he will just coach the students to learn, okay? Not teaching in online and offline. So let's eliminate the lecturing, okay? By eliminating lecturing, we can do much better, and we can do much more. And then we can make students think and talk, okay? Thank you.
Hands in the audience. So, so I think I've got a question just over here. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Seongkyungan University student, and I have a question to Ken Rose. I'm wondering what is the difference between Mineruba and General Assembly in terms of offering education, which is alternative of traditional universities. I'm wondering what exactly the difference between Mineruba and General Assembly.
Thank you. General Assembly, I'm a little bit familiar with General Assembly, but isn't that more vocational education and vocational training? Is that what we call it? Minerva is liberal arts and sciences. It's not vocational training is one thing. And it's a system. It's a new entire university system. Sometimes people ask me, was Minerva a MOOC, for example? And I say, no, a MOOC is a massive open online course. Minerva is not massive. It's not open, it's not online, and it's not a course, right? So even though I'm not as intimately aware of the intricacies of General Assembly, from what little I know, I believe it's actually quite different in just these few ways that I mentioned, and probably then some too.
Thank you. Have we got more questions from the audience? Yes, I have one over here.
I have some questions for Ken Ross, actually 4 different questions. If you don't mind, would you please address all of them?
I'll drink some water first. Yeah.
Yeah. First of all, they're just saying the faculty is the university and the university is the faculty. So would you please address how you hire or select your faculty members to carry out this type of very ambitious and laudable project? The second is your tuition is just $10,000. How can you manage you with the $10,000? And then the third is the selection of students is based on merits, which has 3 components. The first one is the academic excellence, and then the notable achievement, and then the personal attributes. Without getting into any details of each one of them, could you allocate the kind of percentages or the weights of the 3, which add up to 100? And the last question is, are you familiar with the Olin College of Engineering?
Of course, yes.
Okay. How is yours different from Olin College? And also, they spent a lot of time and money to prepare for the opening of the school, which took place in 2002. How about yourself? You just have a history of 2 years or 3, and then how much of a preparation in terms of money and time and research have you done to make sure that your model is going to be successful?
Fabulous, thank you. Oh, okay, I'll try to get through these relatively quickly, but get you some answers. And certainly we can talk afterwards if there are things that I don't address. Faculty, so as a student-centered university, not a research-centered university and not a faculty-centered university, we're all about student learnings. So when we look for faculty, we're looking for certainly strong pedigree, people that are certainly experts in their field, and that have proven that through research, as well, most likely. But we also, above all else, because there are a lot of people like that don't necessarily have this one final attribute that we need to have, and that is a passion for and a dedication to student learning, right? And so that means that, there are many excellent professors out there who, and I have some of these are my friends, and they say, gosh, I have to teach students this semester. That's really terrible, right? They maybe love to do research, which is great and admirable and needed, but they don't actually like to teach, and they aren't so much concerned about particularly undergraduate student learnings at their institutions. Teachers like that and professors like that we would not actually hire. Now, you're probably, I'm guessing, maybe aware of the supply and demand situation with PhDs, professors, and academics in the United States. And for those of you who are not, in general, just let me say there's much more supply than there is demand, right? Of people, with advanced degrees, intelligent, bright, and want to make a difference in education. As selective as Minerva has been with students, we've actually been able to be more selective with our faculty. We only have, because we've still only 2 small cohorts, I believe we have 21 faculty at the moment. Again, we only have 139 students. And so we were actually able to select these faculty from, it's I think over 1,000 people that actually have shown interest over the past couple of years of actually working with Minerva, even though we do not offer, we don't offer tenure, right? And we are in many ways, again, if you're doing research, definitely Minerva, if you just want to do research, Minerva would not be for that type of a faculty. We've still been able to have the pick of the litter, as the expression is. We've been able to have our choice of amazing faculty from around the world. And if even you on our website, you can read some more about them. Certainly our deans are quite famous people in and of themselves. You can Google them if you wanted. So it's actually, we've had a very much easier time than many people would actually believe selecting and choosing our faculty. That's number one. Tuition. So basically, one of the advantages we have, even though it's difficult to start from scratch, as we've done, one of the advantages that we have is by starting from scratch, starting with a clean sheet of paper, we were able to avoid the 5, as I categorize them, 5 major areas that have really been I think the primary reasons for the skyrocketing costs in US higher education, particularly the past several decades. One of those I would say is tenure. There are merits of the tenure system, but it's also a very expensive system, as we know. Two would be undergraduate tuition funding graduate research, which is something somewhat unique to the United States. I know in the UK, for example, this is not what happens. If anything, it's actually the other way around. But in the United States, the undergraduates pay a lot of money and partially fund graduate research. That does not actually happen at Minerva. Sports teams. Minerva is not in the business of running professional level sports teams. The Stanford football coach makes about $1 million US a year, just this football coach, right? And that doesn't account for all the expenses that are necessary to actually build a stadium, maintain a stadium, all the peripheral stuff that exists, right? Just to maintain these sports teams. Our students at Minerva play sports, but we don't run these professional level sports teams. Campus, the way we have reimagined and redefined the campus, the way we use existing resources and facilities, world-class facilities in these cities, means that we do not build our own labs. We use best-in-class ones that exist already. We do not build our own, well, athletic facilities for that matter, right? We use ones that currently exist. Some are open to everyone, but a lot we have to actually arrange, and we establish long-term relationships with the best-in-class facilities in these cities. Something we'll eventually plan to do in Seoul, as a matter of fact. And then finally would be, what was the final one? I got 1, 2, 3, 4 campus. There's a fifth one I think that I'm forgetting right now. But if you understand U.S. higher education, you know that there are a lot of ways that things that you could frankly do without. What does having a winning football team, soccer team, basketball team have to do with the quality of an educational experience? I would argue nothing, right? And that's why we don't have it. Selection of students. We have an absolute academic bar by which how we select students. We have a formula. And everything that we look at, all the aspects of our students that we look at in terms of, as part of the process, as part of the selection process, we look at their grades and their transcripts. We look at them deeply. Even though we do not accept American standardized test scores like SATs and ACTs, we have a series of cognitive and non-cognitive assessments that our students take based on proven assessments that have been around for decades. We haven't reinvented the wheel in this respect. We also look at what our students have accomplished, what they've built, what they've created. Our students have written books, they've founded companies, they've invented patents, they've led and created organizations both in school and certainly outside of school as well. And then we do have a formula that we plug everything, we grade everything using standardized rubrics, and we plug everything into a formula, and you're either above the bar or below the bar. Above your bar you're in, regardless of where you're from or your family background or whatever. And of course, if you're not at the bar, then you're not in. So, and again, we can talk a little bit more about this later. Finally, I'm trying to go through this. Olin, what was the final question? No? About the engineering college. Oh, the engineering college and lack of history. Well, listen, I mean, certainly when you're a newer institution, Olin started. Harvard even started back in 1636. John Harvard, he used to brew beer, and he decided to start a university at the same time. Why the heck not, right? You have to start sometime. But let's remember one thing. I'll leave you this. Everything that Minerva has put together, even though the institution itself is new, everything that we use is proven. In fact, all the pedagogical tools we use, the science of learning, how we use that, we've made sure to make use of only methodologies or models that have been proven not by us, but just by others over decades, right? And so I think that helps a bit when you're starting out. So keep watching us, and I think that the proof, as our students begin to graduate, will be interesting to see over the next couple of years. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think I'm going to have to wrap up now so that we can pass in next door to the wrap-up session. This has been a truly engaging discussion and very informative, and we've retained the audience right till the end of the conference. So thank you, and could you please join me in thanking all the presenters.